Hey everyone, welcome into another edition of No Holds Barred here at the Toronto Sun. Rob Wong and Postmedia wrestling writer Jan Murphy back with you as always. Our guest today, one of the key players during the Monday Night Wars in WCW. He is a three-time world champion, a WWE Hall of Famer, and of course best known now as the founder and CEO of DDP Yoga and the DDP Fitness Program. That's not a bad thing. It's a good thing that we get to chat with the
I,
legendary Diamond Dallas Page. Dallas Page, great to chat with you today. We know you're just recovering from a bit of a heart procedure. How's the recovery going for you, Dallas?
Amazing. The science is so crazy today. What I had was actually, and when I put this out there, it was as a PSA, like, hey, if you're over 50 and I'm 69, if you're over 50 and you're working out strenuously, like really pushing it, you should be wearing a heart monitor. And at the same time, I was stretching my legs out, and uh, people thought was on my deathbed. But no, what I had just done was gotten how they'll do the paddles on you? Well, they do it to you. They put you under and they put a paddle on the front of you and on the back of you. There's like a little piece of thin metal and they hit you like three times, but that's it to try to get you on track of your rhythm of your heart. And for me, it came after the second one. They tried it light because last time they had done it to me, I went right on. So they tried it light and that didn't work. So they went a little bit more. And then I was popped. I was in my zone. So the fluctuation would only come when I was working out. And what I wanted to fix that because when you have AFib, it is much easier to do a cardio ablation, which means they take cameras and electrodes and run them up your groin, up into your heart. How this
Wow.
is possible? It's alien stuff. So all I know is they now today in 2024, they do electrodes and like and it will take that little flap and now make it one. So I feel great. And now I can work out starting in 3 more days. I've already started just light movement and stuff. So I really feel great. And I'm not worried about my heart at all because my calcium score, which everyone should know, is 0. And, I don't have any blockages. So, yeah, when you get around in your 50s or it's late 60s, you should definitely be aware of all that.
Very speaking of alien, it's a very alien thing for DDP to be on the other side. You're the guy who's been helping all these fellow wrestlers with their own health struggles forever. I mean, I met you when we talked about Jake the Snake, who probably was the one who helped bring sort of what you do to the mainstream media. This was
Yeah,
probably what 10 or more years ago now, right?
14 years ago. And I want you to
There we
think
go.
about that. Jake the Snake has outlived Macho, Piper, and now Hulk. Think about that. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember, but it was an online thing, and they called it in the late 80s into the 90s. They called it the Deadpool. Like, who was the
Yeah.
next? And there was a top 10 guys on that list. Bagwell was on that list a bunch, but Scott and Kev were number one or number two whenever that list came out. And I can remember that first phone call that I made to Scott Hall when Jake was living with me. And you guys have Amazon Prime, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
world has Amazon, right? So the resurrection of Jake the Snake is actually on Amazon Prime. And uh, we were filming, we had just filmed our first call with Scott Hall. And the only reason I made that call was because Sean Waltman, 123 Kid, X Pac, whatever his AKA is for you. Sean had texted me saying, Dally, I know you're doing some wonderful things with Jake. Would you please call Scott? I just got the phone with him. He said he's got a gun. He said he's going to kill himself. I called Scott, I don't know how many times, where he never answered that phone. But that night, he answered that phone. And it took him a while to understand who he was talking to. That's how,
Yeah.
that's what a mess he was at the time. And by the end of that conversation, which was like 15 minutes, it was like a different guy you were talking to because he started to change his mindset. He started to think about, even though he was wasted, the the call that I got from him the next day and he left a message was so powerful. And you can hear that message when me and Jake are sitting around our table and we're just listening and we put that in the documentary. He sounds so alive. He sounds like I'm the most positive I've been in I don't know how long. And yeah, I feel good about this. I'm going to do this. It took us a month to get him up there. But when he got up there, Jake was tough to handle at times. Scott was an angel the entire time. Like he worked out, he ate right, he followed the bouncing ball. And it was an incredible journey, for both of those guys. And we lost Scott a couple years ago, but that was because of COVID. And,
Right.
and I don't mean COVID. I mean being trapped in a house where as human beings, we're not supposed to be by ourselves. Some people love that. Very few people can handle that. And when you get by yourself and you're in a dark room and you're just watching TV, you're not being active. Um, it's dark. It's very, very, very dark. And I saw Scott and was with him right before he ended up going to the hospital and passing. I was going to take him again and bring him to my house. And he's like, "No, Dolly, you and your wife, you just got married. You don't need me around." And I said to him what she said to me. I told her what was happening, and I haven't talked to him. I haven't seen him yet. And she said that I don't want your friend to die. Go get him and bring him back over here. But he wouldn't come because what we had perfected for him to a certain degree was him tapering down. He didn't want to be seen like that or be in that spot where he was still drinking. So it was I make it a habit of not chasing people. Like if you want to do something with me and you're putting the work in, you've got my attention, a la Butterbean, actually a la Bagwell or Scotty Riggs or guys that I know that I have relationships with or who will give me the keys. Because a lot of people don't want to give you the keys. They still want to drive. And you don't know how to drive anymore.
Right.
So, yeah, on the other side of it, for me, it's a maintenance thing. Like I've had AFib before, and that was a couple years ago. Now the new version of the electrodes, it's like an upgraded version, and my heart's good, and I'm going to go as long as I can and keep moving and try to keep setting the best example, for our guys.
Well, we're happy to hear it. One guy, of course, recently that you've been working with, Lex Luger, and of course that culminated in that amazing Hall of Fame ceremony where you inducted him. How did that all come about? You and Lex obviously go way back. People obviously know his story and the struggles that he's gone through. What has this, journey with Lex meant to you?
I was there from the beginning of what happened was Eric Watts, who hated Lex, was telling me how Lex has completely changed. He's born again. He is one of the nicest human beings I've ever come in contact with. I'm like, what? You hate Lex? Like, you're right. I did. And I was going to beat his ass a couple of times. But I'm glad that never happened. He goes, because he is a changed person. And it took 5 DUIs. It took going to his lowest low. And his pastor, who had been there every time trying to get him, to see Christ, and he eventually did. I had to see that. So this goes back 2008, I believe it was. And I call the promoters a big show in San Francisco, near the Cow Palace, which is like deep in the hood of California. And I wasn't going to do it, the show, because I didn't need to. But I heard Lex was going to be there and I'm going. So I told the promoter, I want to surprise him though. I want to, when he gets to his room, let me know. So he calls me and he said, DDP, Lex, I think he had a heart attack or something. And it wasn't a heart attack, but that's what he thought. The EMTs were up there. They had to break down the door because he couldn't answer the door. And when I get there, the door's off the hinges and there's Lex sitting in a chair. He's like, D, what are you doing here? Come in, I give him a hug, and I didn't really notice he didn't move. I said, I came here to see you, man. I heard you're born again, bro, and I had to see this new Lex. He goes, I'm good, I'm good. And the EMT goes, no, you're not. You need to go to the hospital with us. And again, I thought it was a heart thing. I'm like, bro, you got to go. That's nothing to play with. You got to go. He goes, well, Dolly, you know, my hips are like fused together. So I use crutches. So I can't really get up and basically get on the gurney. I said, bro, I got you. So it was a man and a woman. So me and him picked Lex up, put him on the gurney, and off he went. I didn't realize it at the time, but this was all he could move, his pinky. And everybody was flipping out during the you know, as it the two people, I wish I could find out their names because we're doing a whole documentary on this with Lex. They were such big fans. They're in the hood, not really the best hospitals, right? They went past everything and went to Stanford, and where this is one of the top schools in our country. You know, it's like Harvard, and for medical especially. And they brought him there, and then they took him back here to Atlanta. They had to take up 2 sections of seating and stuff to get him back to the Shepherd Center. And my business partner, Steve, you and I, we started filming things with Lex back then. And all he could do was floor stuff with me. Because eventually he started to get his hands back, but not like this. But he could move them and use them. He could move his arms, got to where he could move his legs. And with a lot of the stuff that Shepherd Center and that we did, helped him get up and literally start walking with a cane. And then he calls me in Buffalo, which is about 5 years later. I'm doing a signing up there. And he says, hey, D, you in town? Buffalo? I go, yeah. He goes, hey, I'm up here taking care of my mom. I'd love to go to dinner with you tonight. I said, absolutely. And he showed up in the wheelchair. And I was like, whoa, dude, what happened? You were out of the wheelchair. He said, I know. He goes, honestly, he said, I got cocky. I stopped doing what you'd showed me. I did not want to use that cane. I got to where I could start walking and I hit a pothole and I went down and I've been in the chair ever since. So when we started, it was a little over almost 13 years of him being in the chair. So think of your legs muscle completely, you know, the atrophy that happens. You know, if you don't use it, you lose it. And Lex had tried and tried and tried to get up and tried to, you know, to walk numerous times, but he kept falling. And he's telling me that at Sting's last match. He'd asked a couple of us to go up there, and me and Lex were 2 of the guys. Me, Scotty Riggs, and me and him, we drove up from Atlanta to North Carolina, and Lex did as well. And we got together, and he was like, you know, D, I saw you what you did with Butterbean, and I didn't know you had chair workouts. He goes, I think I could do those. Would you have any time? I'm like, dude, I've been waiting for you. I got an elevator in my house. I said, you don't have to worry about stairs or anything. And so bottom line is we started the next day, and it all was geared around, he had gotten to a point where he could put his hand on my shoulder and walk for about 15 feet. And when he got to Vegas, the driver came around with the wheelchair, roll wherever he could to save, you know, work out when he does and sit in the chair and if he needs to and go, especially any kind of pavement. And the guy didn't hold the chair and it slid out from under him and he hit the concrete. And he could not barely stand up the day before. And only through pure Lex Luger, what I call the cyborg tenacity, did he get out there and get up and hold on to the podium, which was really huge for a lot of people to see. But if he would have walked
I was there.
at 15 feet, boy, they would have been rocked. And he was really bummed, like on my side of it, for all the work I put in. I said, bro, I don't care. I said, we're shooting a documentary too. I go, this is another adversity along the way. What do you do when you fall down? You get back up again and you keep moving. You just don't quit. And Lex Luger has a don't quit switch on that very few people would really ever have.
Really, the list of people that you've helped over the years is absolutely incredible. And there's a definitely a place up above waiting for you when your time on this earth is done, DDP. Uh, Talk a little bit about Hulk Hogan for us. I know it's a guy you have a long history
Oh,
with. Huge loss to the wrestling industry, right? A huge loss to the
huge.
business.
Again, there's in Dusty, Jake was really the first to believe in me as a wrestler. Dusty was the second. And that took time. That really took time. But along that way, Hulk. We did a UK tour. I think we did 2 or 3 cities in UK, and then we went into Germany. And I'm in the curtain jerker spot, me and Duggan every night. We're out there getting the crowd, getting them warmed up, and uh, in Berlin, I walked through the curtain and Hulk grabbed my arm. He goes, D, come here. I said, how are you doing it? I'm like, how am I doing what, bro? Like, he goes, getting so much better. He said, I rarely see you on TV, but when I do, you got some new move, you're getting the people engaged. He goes, and that's what this is all about. He said, this is how they're doing it for you, right? They're putting you on the road so you learn your craft. They're not really putting you on TV too much. I said, Hulk, the only reason that I am on this card is because it's featured in Germany. My last name is Falkenberg. My grandfather's from the Black Forest, and I got a smoking hot wife that walks me to the ring. And he said, well, how are you doing it though? And I said, well, I guess they're not using me. So I went down to power plant and I go there every single day. I'm the first to come. I am the last to leave. There's 3 different rings. I will go from ring to ring to ring. And what I've learned, and this has everything to do with life, it applies to absolutely everything. The more you teach someone something, the more you learn. The more you learn, the better you get. And Hulk said to me, and I said, he had said to me, well, it's not this year or next year, but somewhere down the line, I believe that you have the ability to draw huge money with me. And I was like, what? And then he said, just keep doing what you're doing. And he walked away. And I thought to myself, did Hulk Hogan just tell me he watches my matches?
No kidding.
And that would be a conversation that would happen that was in 94. You go 4 years later, and I'm the one who came up with the idea that, because Carl told me, win or lose, we're on the Tonight Show. I'm sure Rodman will be. I know I will be. And wow, that got my brain going already. And I went over and talked to Bischoff about it. He didn't really know Malone, but that's the last game where they swept LA 4 straight. And Carl, like, nobody uses Shaq, but he took it to Shaq big time, and they took him out in 4. And I had met Carl, earlier, and I was at a game up in the stands, and he threw up the diamond cutter sign during the timeout.
Yeah.
My buddy Ross Foreman, who is our photographer for WCW, he's like, "Oh my God, oh my!" Now he's reaching for his camera. Carl Malone just did the diamond cutter sign to you, and he pulls out the camera. He goes, "You got to get him to do it again." I said, "Bro, I don't know him." He goes, "He knows you." And next time on it, 'cause they were up like 20, so he was on the bench in the fourth quarter, and I just threw up the sign, pointed to the camera, and he threw it up again. We took a picture, went backstage, and that was the beginning of a beautiful friendship. We shot that angle not on the wrestling show. We shot that angle on the Tonight Show, which over here is, the main stage. And it was the second biggest drawing pay-per-view of all time for WCW.
Yeah.
Talk about manifesting. Talk about manifesting a dream into reality.
Yeah, I'm so happy you brought that up because I wanted to ask you about that today. I mean, that's one of my favorite memories of that era of DDP, that match with you, Carl, Dennis Rodman and Hulk at Bash at the Beach 98. And it's kind of crazy to even think that that would happen back in that day because those guys were still playing. Like, how do they get the
Right.
insurance? How did the teams allow them to compete in a wrestling match? Because nowadays you really don't see that. You'll see maybe athletes just, stand in the ring, point at each other, maybe, do a little
Right.
promo, but to
Right.
actually get in the ring and wrestle with you guys with the potential of injury, like that's what's crazy to me.
And those two guys, like, I call Carl up after I have this idea. I go down and I haven't talked to Bischoff yet. I've thought of the idea. I know it's coming. He's still got to play LA, but we know what happened there. And I start thinking about like, I got to ask you this. I got to ask you this. Do you have any kind of heat with Rodman? And he said, no. He said, as a matter of fact, most people don't know this, but back in my day, meaning him, when you got drafted, you had to go and play with the summer league. You had to go. And it didn't matter how big a star you were, you're going to room with someone else. He roomed with Rodman.
Oh, wow.
And they got to know each other. He goes, I don't know who this guy is who's wearing the wedding dresses, but I know who Dennis Rodman is.
Fantastic. I did some interviews with you early on in the DDPY empire that you've now built. Talk a little bit about those earnest beginnings to this empire that you now have, where people have an app and you're doing documentaries, and more of your former colleagues and friends are reaching out to you for help in their at their lowest points. I mean, do you ever stop and pinch yourself or take a look at what you've done and kind of marvel at it like the rest of us do?
Uh, it chokes me up, just to know, because it's not me, it's my whole team. And that's very obvious in the resurrection of Jake the Snake. Because you see my business partner, Steve Yu, who really gives a damn, like really cares. And then all of our crew, I mean, all of them, they're a lot of them were fans. So, the guy who's doing the controlling and stuff right here with my boy Nathan, he came in the beginning of Resurrection, and he came in as a film and an editor, and it's one of his first jobs in this spot. And he's a kid. How old were you then, Nathan? 20, 21 years old. Okay, so big Tennessee wrestling fan growing up as a kid. And Steve calls down because we need another memory card for the camera. And I just got back from Costa Rica. And when I would go, that's when Jake would go off a little bit, And this one, who I don't remember why besides just doing it, but I don't remember why I was not yelling. I was screaming at Jake. and the door, the knock, 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 and it's Nathan. And when he opens the door, Steve grabs the little memory card, and he's seeing me like cut this promo on Jake, and then Steve just shuts the door. And he hasn't met me yet. He's just been hired. So he has like no idea like who's the real, oh my, I've seen that. I grew up with that guy, you know? And I later walked by him, he told me, and I came back, patted him on the back. He was like, it scared the out of him. They're like, how you doing, bro? You having a good time? Like I was back to being me, but there was very few times where I would really sell it. But those times we caught them all on camera, and we didn't show them all, you know. But Jake, it took time, and that's what people have to understand. If you have, and we all have a family member or a friend who has addiction issues, and that could be booze, that could be pills, that could be coke, crack, it could be food.
Look, here in Canada, we're lucky to have a lot of things, and one thing I would say that we love to celebrate here is just the amount of great wrestling memories I think we've had over the years. And WrestleMania X8, 18, you were there, part of that, of course, wrestling Christian for the European title, and we just saw Christian this past week at AEW All Out in Toronto. It's kind of crazy that he and Adam Copeland still doing what they're doing at their ages. But what do you remember about that night? Of course, the big match, Rock Hogan, is a memory that a lot of wrestling fans in this city have as a childhood memory. But where were you that night during that match, and what do you remember from those moments?
I was actually in Hogan's box that night, and his daughter was there, Brooke, who's best friends with my daughter Brittany. Um, Man, the crowd, it was so hot. It was so hot, and it was really Hulk coming home because he ain't been there in a long time. And The Rock, the cat just like it didn't bluster him that he was being turned into the big heel. They went with it. They fed off each other. I can remember watching Blair and Macho in Buffalo, and they didn't do anything for 5 minutes. And I'm like the bottom of the mid card guy at the time. Me and Conan were watching the match, and we're like, that's being over. Like when you don't have to do anything, whatever you do, it gets the people like right there. And it's one of my favorite matches ever, Hulk and Rock, and getting to see it live like that, and knowing that Hulk going up into there, was second guessing himself. I've heard the biggest names in the world, and he is obviously at the tippity top. But I've heard guys, who are as big can be, until they get that, go through that curtain and hear those people, are they still going to remember me? I've had that feeling myself after taking off a long time, then coming back. Now it's, about like a different level, as far as the people that remember me for whatever. I'm so grateful for so many of my boys who would be not such a good spot if they didn't have the signings. That on a weekend in the States, there could be like 6 different places. There could be 10 different shows. And I'm not talking about wrestling shows. I'm talking about Comic Cons, WrestleCons, whatever they are. And it gives, we are so memorable, the 80s and the 90s. And I thought nothing would be able to ever touch the 90s because of the wars, the Monday Night War, how live it was. But now it's the world. And Cody, who I've known and mentored since he was 12 years old, don't do a lot of mentoring anymore, but there was times, trust me, going into that first match at WrestleMania, I was right there just giving them my version, and then The Rock coming in and looked like they're going to take it away again, because he was told he was going over the first time. And
Yeah.
I won't say I was glad he didn't, but looking back, I'm glad he didn't, because I said to him, he was at my house, and I said to him, I said, is it that bad if you don't go over yet? He goes, I knew you were going to say that. You're the only one who said that. Mainly because I know when I didn't win the United States Championship and I didn't win the United States Championship, and then I did, the people went crazy. They dubbed me, Mike Tenay started it, the People's Champion. You'll never hear me in a promo calling myself the People's Champion. That was given to me by the fans because he may not win this title or that title, but he's our champion. He's our guy. And that's what made it, super special. And, just looking at the entire run, I think, that WrestleMania, looking back, because it wasn't booked where anybody from WCW was ever going to get over. I did not realize the heat that I was experiencing. I mean, I didn't think the company, I thought, I've never done anything. I always do business. I'm known for one of the hardest working guys in this business. I did what no one believed was possible. Surely this is going to be unbelievable. And I walked away from $487,000 because they would only give me, it originally was 50. If you want to go WWF now, 50%, we'll give you 50% of your contract. But I had a lawsuit with Kevin Nash and Goldberg and a couple other guys for merchandising that they completely screwed us on. And I had to walk away from that lawsuit that I know made over $500,000. I know that. I had to walk away from that to get 70% of the money. But that still left $487,000 on the table. And I thought, they're going to give me a $450,000 downsized contract. I know I'm going to make $4 or $5 million a year. Like, who cares about the downside? Oh, I didn't know it was going to be booked like this. I just recently did Undertaker's podcast, and I love Mark Calloway. I love the Taker. Wasn't always like that, coming off, what happened to me up there. And I did his podcast. It's worth listening to. It was really, really good. I mean, he put me over so strong. I was like knocked over a little bit because he would be, when you say the man, there's like 5 of them, the guys who have that spot, and he's absolutely one of them. And he said, well, we got to talk about your WWE run. And I just sat back and said, well, here we go. And he said, I have taken so much heat from different fans who think I tried to ruin your run. And I could see the frustration building up. And he goes, don't they know I didn't book this? And I just reached across the little table we were sitting at. I grabbed his hand. I said, bro, we're good. Let me tell you what happened. That was the positive side of that. I said, it's me, Shane, Vince, Kim. They tell me, friggin', we want you to stalk Taker's, who doesn't sell really with the gimmick to begin with, right? Like, that's his MO, right? But now he's a babyface on this, and then I'm going to stalk his wife. I did not want to do it at all. I want to do People's Champ versus People's Champ. What I learned, and I told Take this that day, I learned my most valuable lesson as a businessman. You can't be afraid when you know you have that thing that they want. You can't be afraid to walk away from the table. When Vince said, we want you to stalk Undertaker's wife, we've already shot the films and it's all the guys covered up and everything. And if I'd have been in WCW, which I fought and clawed for everything I ever got there, I would have went, Vince, are you looking at my wife? Like, the most beautiful woman ever in professional wrestling? That's ridiculous. Let's do People's Champ versus People's Champ. Oh, you don't want to do that? I should have got up, shook his hand, said, bro, when you want to do People's Champ versus People's Champ, give me a call. That's what I should have done. I should have got up and gone. But if they would have shifted it and went with it, I wouldn't be where I am right now. So I wouldn't change anything. And it was such a great, I had such a great time hanging out with Mark because I did that show right before that he has LFG, Legends and Future Greats. And
Yeah.
we ended up sitting down and watching some the stuff that when Punk had come in. And I mean, I feel like he is, I consider him one of my very good friends now. And I mean, I've always totally respected him. And I know now that how much he respects me and what I've done. And that's all we ever really want. And there's a brotherhood between us, like with Ric Flair. I mean, there's nobody that I had more heat with back and forth than me and Nate. And I hated it. I hated it. And I remember when he retired the first time from WWE and they get the balloon drop and everybody's coming out, right? And they're crying, you know. And I'm thinking, man, I don't want to feel this way about him. I don't want him to feel that way about me. So that next weekend, we're in Jersey. So I'd gone up to do a signing. And when Nate walked in, of course, he was just engulfed by people. Eventually, it's just being him. And he says, hey, Diamond. I say, hey, Nate. I said, you got a second? He goes, sure. So we walk off to a corner. And I say, you know, bro, I know over the years, you and I have had heat together. He's like, oh, Diamond, don't worry about that. I said, Rick, I'm not worried about it. I want to try and fix it. I said, I know I've said some shit. I know you've said some shit. I don't give a fuck. I love the nature boy. I don't want to feel like this about you. I don't want you to feel that way about me. I said, what I love is to start all over again. I said, I'm Diamond Dallas Page. I put my hand out and he popped. He grabbed me, hugged me, kissed my forehead, you know, and that was the beginning of me and Nate. And when he almost died, and only Rick could have kicked out of what he kicked out of, I was there. I was one of the people, you know, that came and saw him in the hospital. You know, Hogan was there. He was telling me about the time, you know, he was passed out for a while there and he opened his eyes. It was Steamboat and he screamed. Steamboat was like right over him. Is he alive? Is he still alive? God, how great was the feuds with Steamboat and Flair? I mean, magical,
Yeah.
man. Literally Flair and anybody. Flair and anybody.
Yeah. Truly, truly amazing. One last, just a comment from me, lest anyone think that it's just professional wrestlers in your inner circle that you've helped over the years. I mentioned it earlier. 15 years ago, you took a chance on a journalist at a small daily newspaper in Canada, and you did an interview with me. You later hooked up a Jake the Snake interview that turned out to be one of my best ever. You also set me up with Scott Hall. You met me at the hotel. I think it was in Texas for WrestleMania. You are truly a great human being, DDP, and the world has been very blessed with everything that you've done to help people. That seems to be all you do is help. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dallas. Really great chatting with you today, man. Incredible stories, incredible work that you're still doing to this day. You can find the DDP Fitness Program over at ddpyoga.com. Dallas, thanks for this, man. Appreciate it.